Okay, guys, we're going to pick up right where we left off with sleep in adolescence. The National Sleep Foundation is a rather new foundation in the scheme of things, where there's been a lot of public education that is trying to basically get people to understand the importance of sleep. And so there's two NSFs. There's the National Sleep Foundation and the National Science Foundation. And the National Science Foundation is gigantic and it's been around forever. And so most people, when they talk about NSF, they're talking about that. So I'm going to talk about the other NSF, the National Sleep Foundation. And so what they like to do is do big surveys with tens of thousands of people and get big results and talk about those results over the entire nation. And so in 2006, there's a really good survey done. Each time they do this survey, there's like a theme and a series of questions that they like to get at. And so this one in particular was adolescent sleep. And so in 2006, they gathered all these statistics and found that 45% of adults got inadequate sleep on school nights. And what's considered inadequate sleep is about 8 hours, less than 8 hours per night. And so, of course, this means that the adolescents were crankier, they were sleepier, they were more irritable. They wanted to they felt the need to fall asleep in school. They had the more indication of depression, and they drank more caffeine and consumed more caffeine than those adolescents who got optimal sleep. And so when we look at some of these particular studies, it's a little disturbing because we're finding that adolescents get less sleep. And that's because, there could be, so there's some theories, there's the problems of, this idea that adolescents' circadian rhythm, which is their body rhythm. This is their day-to-day, how sleepy they feel at night, how awake they feel in the morning, every rhythm in their body. There's been a lot of evidence to suggest that during adolescence, we actually experience a shifted circadian rhythm, meaning that adolescents are much more likely to have the need to go to sleep later in the night. So, you might find that when you're 9 and 10 years old, you're exhausted by 8 p.m. and you want to hit the bed and you're done and you sleep all the way to the night and wake up at 6 a.m. and go to school. When we hit adolescence, we go through this period of change where our body's rhythms delay. And so an adolescent before might have been tired at 8 p.m. now doesn't get tired until maybe 1 a.m. And so when you see this shift, what ends up happening is that an adolescent can sleep in a lot later. And so they actually do, there's a lot of study that says that adolescents actually do need more sleep during this time. Remember, they're going through a lot of brain changes and maturation during this time. And so an adolescent is not requiring less sleep. They're actually requiring more sleep, but their whole rhythm is shifted down. So that means that, they may go to bed at midnight or 1 a.m., but really they want to wake up at 10 a.m. And so if anybody goes to school, in a public school or even private school, this is kind of a problem because school starts pretty early. And so what ends up happening is that these individuals who are trying to trying to get more sleep, but can't because they have to cut that wake up time to go to school, they are drastically sleep deprived. And because of the sleep deprivation, we're seeing that working memory, which is the workbench of your memory, what keeps stuff going as you're thinking of other things. Working memory is shot. It doesn't work very well. Anxiety is increased. There's more emotional problems, and they feel increased stress. And so adolescents can't deal with the typical emotional problems, and so it blows up. And they can't deal with stress. So we see that these emotional and peer-related problem increases, high anxiety, high level of suicidal ideation, meaning thinking about killing themselves. Actually, those adolescents who got less than 7.7 hours of sleep per night were much more likely to go through these things of these poor indicators. And so, when we look at some of the studies that have been done here, you can see that as in adolescent ages and goes further into high school, you see that they're actually getting less and less sleep. There's less percentage of adolescents who are getting a full night's sleep as they move to 12th grade. And that's a big problem. And there's been a lot of study to look at, why is it that adolescents are getting less sleep? And of course, they're experiencing more electronic media usage. There's more screen time. They're consuming more caffeine. They're having these changes in their circadian rhythm, changes in their brain. We know that caffeine consumption and daytime sleepiness are related to poor scores on tests and poor levels of attention. When we try to fix this and say, okay, well, why don't we just delay school times? When they've done studies to do that, for example, a 30-minute delay time, we see an improvement in their sleep. We see improvement in alertness and mood and health. And when there have been experts that have argued, well, if you just delay sleep time, start time in schools, then they'll just go to bed even later. And that's actually not evidence at all. We've not seen any indications that that's actually true. When you delay start times for school, those adolescents are getting that much more sleep time in. So if you delay it 30 minutes, they're sleeping 30 more minutes. It's not like they're going to go, oh, well, I've got even later to stay up. They don't. They go to sleep when they're tired. There's been a recent study, a recent statement by the American Academy of Pediatrics that have advocated that schools institute a start time anywhere from between 8:30 to 9:30 in order to improve quality of life as well as academic performance. When we see that these adolescents are not getting proper sleep patterns and they're not educated on the importance of sleep, we see that translated through emerging adulthood. You see that they can't deal with stress. They're having this academic stress that's going to negatively affect their sleep, and they don't know how to deal with it. We see poor quality sleep in adulthood linked to worse physical and mental health. And so they also experience this emotional stress that's a problem in emerging adulthood that adolescents simply cannot deal with because they don't have the right tools to deal with these stressors. And part of this is this inability to sleep properly and to have good quality of sleep. And that starts during this adolescent period. And so, if you've ever heard me talk about advocating for later sleep times, it's exactly the reason why. School start time should be delayed for adolescents simply because it's going to lead to much healthier adolescents. And then that's going to translate to healthier emerging adults, which is going to translate to healthier adults getting into the workforce who have better sleep patterns. Because really, once you cross that pubertal stage and start getting into a different sleep rhythm, your circadian rhythm does revert back for some individuals into an earlier time to sleep. So it goes from delayed, not necessarily to advanced, but it does go backwards a bit in time. And so you're able to recover from that. But adolescence is a period of development where we need to acknowledge that the science is saying that adolescents need their sleep. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause and resume a video so that way we can go into our next topic, which is evolution, heredity, environment. So I'm going to try to tackle this all in one video and then hopefully end for this session.